talking. What's wrong?
What we always do.
That's right.
We get together and then we just waste a ton of time.
It's valuable time.
To the point where we're going to end up rushing.
No, we're not. We're going to do a perfectly 2-hour episode, 30 minutes at the beginning. We're talking back and forth, and 30 minutes for every single segment.
I don't think we need that long for some of this stuff.
I agree 100%.
I was going to say, the only problem...
We should shoot for 30 minutes max. If we go over, it's fine. If we go under, it's better. Right?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be here talking to these people.
We're going to have 2 conversations in the movie portion, so does that mean each one needs to be limited to 15 minutes?
Yes.
Or does that mean that can run over and then we just cut the time on the other 2 segments?
I don't know.
Quit acting like you're this...
If it goes over, I'm going to edit. I'm going to edit you out.
Quit acting like you're this streamlining czar all of a sudden. You're the czar of sight and sound.
The other day when we were doing After Schmo, I didn't care at the time, but I noticed that I hadn't talked for 3 minutes. And I was like, if I was a...
How did I treat that? Was that the time when I said, Jay, you can talk? Like, just because I had to stop?
I don't know. But if I was more of a person that, if I gave a shit about things more than I do, I probably would be like, Ryan talks too much on the podcast. But I didn't care at the time. I was just like, it's been 3 minutes. I should probably interject with something. So I said, yeah.
It's funny because I kind of generally believe the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like I would like for us to speak in shorter sentences. That way the other person can be more responsive within the conversation instead of entire sections where only one person talks and then get a reaction.
I think it makes it easier when we're in person more, which is why it feels more comfortable when we're doing it here on Sight and Sound.
Right.
So if you are an After Schmo listener and you've never checked out Sight and Sound, and for some reason this is the first time you've done that and you're hearing this conversation, Sight and Sound's better than After Schmo. Without a doubt.
What the hell is that?
It is. Because it's our thing. You have to support your personal brand. I mean, I don't know if I believe it or not, but
They're just different things.
It's what I'm selling right now.
They're just different things.
It's what I'm selling.
Good.
You went to Starbucks.
Sell
and
the thing you're doing. Don't sell the other thing that I do.
What do you do?
Very
What's
good.
the other thing you do?
After Schmo is my show.
It's our show.
Then why do you always go,
I say that you're in...
Ryan is 100% in charge of After
Because
Schmo,
you are in charge of it.
Goes.
You are in charge of it, but it's our show.
It's our show. It's Ryan and Jay, absolutely.
Right.
It's not hosted by Ryan Snelling.
Right. So me saying that one show is better than the other, even as a joke, it's clearly like I'm doing a disservice to our show.
It didn't feel right.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Sight and Sound is a better show. Go ahead. What were you saying? Why did you get a small coffee?
That's a venti.
Yeah, it's the smaller of the... It's smaller than the Trenta. Don't you normally get a Trenta?
Trenta's not even on the menu. So what I got is a large coffee. You
Don't you
just
normally get a
that-
Trenta?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I had a venti earlier today.
Oh, okay.
So I just figured I'd get 2 ventis
You
instead
can't have
of
too
one
much
Trenta.
milk. It's not good for your stomach.
There's no milk in there.
What is it?
It's just a little bit of cream.
Is it cream milk?
No.
It's not?
That's an iced coffee with a little bit of cream.
I thought, but is cream milk?
I thought you said isn't cream milk.
Yeah.
No?
Are you sure? It's dairy.
No, I'm not sure.
Is dairy milk?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's one of those things we just like, I don't know. I guess so.
Is there lactose in cream?
Well, yeah, of course. The only thing there's not lactose in is lactose-free things, right? Like almond milk, soy milk.
Oranges?
Milk. Yeah, chicken. Birds.
The one thing that I wanted to bring up, and we're not going to bring up everything that we were discussing off air, but you mentioned maybe we have some first-time listeners. If you are a listener on the Podbean app, how can we talk to you? Like, I looked at our account, and we have almost 700 followers on Podbean alone, and that does not include our Facebook group. That doesn't include all of the other loyal fans that might have come over from Schmoville. It's like Podbean seems to be its own little section.
Yeah.
So if you listen to Sight and Sound on Podbean and you don't interact with us, we want to say hello. I don't know how.
Hello.
I don't know how to interact with you, and I want you to interact with us in some way or another. So maybe at this point, it sounds like every time we plug the Facebook group, it just sounds like another thing that we're doing. But it's like, if you have Facebook and you listen to us on Podbean, you should definitely join that group with all of the other listeners. Like, it's so weird to me that we have a divide there, and I don't know how to reach out to all of those people.
Well, I didn't even know you could post things in like a text form. But one thing that always is peculiar to me is when somebody that we know, like via our Facebook group, who uses that uses Podbean to listen to us, when they just randomly like an episode, and it's just like, what led you to like this one? Why aren't you liking the rest of them? Is really the question. Like, what was it specifically about this one that led you to hit that little heart-shaped button?
Right.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I logged into, you talked about, like, for those of you who don't know, when we are logged into our Podbean account, we either publish an episode or you have the ability to publish a text post. I logged into Film Beef's account.
Yeah.
And put in a text post. This was like last week. In the text I put, "Are you still there? If you're curious what's going on with Ryan Snelling, come see us at Sight and Sound."
Right.
So if you go to Film Beef's account, you'll see that.
Yeah, I'm always curious to look at like the geography of where people listen to us.
Yeah.
Especially outside of the country. I think we have quite a few people that listen in, I think it's Japan, maybe. I could be wrong.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that excites me, especially when in like 4 years, when we're big enough to, do some live shows and we can go around the world. And I don't know. I'm stressed out about that. Stressed out about traveling for Sight and Sound in the future.
Ugh.
Because, exactly. You're the reason. When we went to Nashville, it was
that was a different me.
But that's the only experience I have.
Completely different me. You're talking about the me that was so anxious to go to Nashville.
Right.
I couldn't even work up the strength to get through an episode of Weekly. I never did movie episodes. Okay. This week I've been putting up a movie episode every week, and I put up a movie commentary today.
It's funny because
get at me.
It's funny because to back up your defense of I'm a different person was that I put out more podcasts now. It's just like, okay, I'll take your word for it, and I agree.
It was a completely different mindset. I was a wreck. I was totally wrecked.
I blame it on that dog and his shitty breath, Luke, not Luke Jaggers, but Luke the dog.
Yeah. I don't know what was up with that.
You got called out by Brando for chewing on a straw in your movie commentary.
It's fine.
I haven't listened to it, but don't take it personal. I don't listen to movie commentaries, but
well,
I like that you're doing it.
That's not personal at all.
I know. I'm just saying. I like that you're doing it. I know you don't.
I've listened to some, but I don't seek them out. Like I do. I think it's
right.
I think it's cool that there are channels like Pretty Much It that like that's one of the main things that they do. I think that's cool because I know that there's value to that, but it's one of those things like trailer reactions. I just don't respond to them personally necessarily.
It is sort of a funny thing because I saw a handful of people responding and tweeting at us in response to it that being uploaded and saying like, "Oh, great! I actually haven't seen Chappie, so I'm going to tune in." And isn't the whole thing is you're not supposed to talk during movies, but yet the first time you're going to experience a movie, you're going to be listening to this commentary. I find that fascinating. It's each their own.
That's why I thought it was weird that Brando. I was like,
I think Christina even said it. Like she was like, I've never seen this movie, so I'll watch it now and watch it along.
And that was the point. I wanted it to be on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. Like I wanted it to be on a streaming service, and I assumed that it was like similar to like a watch along, where if you know that you're going to go into it with the mindset of there are other people that are going to be interacting and discussing what we're watching. Like I just thought in the general rule was that you always pick something that you think most people have seen. Otherwise, they're not going to be involved at all. So that's why I picked Chappie. I'm never, ever going to do a movie commentary on a movie that I haven't seen first.
Yeah.
Like, for example, The Ritual was a movie that came out on Netflix yesterday. It's a horror movie. If I was going to end up doing like a timely commentary on that film, I would watch the movie first and then watch it again with the commentary. Because I don't want to, just as a movie fan, I don't want to taint the experience. just because I'm recording content. I would actually rather go through the trouble of watching a movie twice to do it.
It's one of those things that I found fascinating when I did my listen along. I sort of put it out there. Hey, we're going to do this, so go ahead and listen to it. And some people, that was their first time listening to it. It's interesting to figure out what sort of entertainment we can provide people while doing stuff like that, because some people come in just to hang out, right? So like, especially on that when there was a live chat and this and that.
Yeah.
But some people just want to hear your take, but some people literally want you, or at least they were interested in me breaking down certain things about an album that maybe they wouldn't listen for specifically, like, oh, this instrument playing in the background,
right,
buried deep in this. Did you find yourself just having casual conversation during it, or were you like breaking things down?
I was pretty much only talking about the movie. So I wasn't just talking about my day and shit like that. Like, I thought going in that I might be able to make it like any other podcast. That just wasn't the case. There were plenty of times, especially as the movie went on, where I just ended up just kind of sitting there and watching it.
Did you tell somebody to bring you Charlotte Copley?
No, I didn't want to explain that.
I didn't know that guy is going to be in the new Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah,
that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch Rogue Nation tonight. I might do a commentary. That's another great thing about it.
You're going to do it all the time now. Yeah,
I mean, that's another great thing is that when most of our content is timely, I can just watch a movie and record a commentary and then save it in a bank and release it whenever I want. I could release the Rogue Nation commentary the week before Fallout, or I could release an Ocean's 11 commentary right before Ocean's 8. Right.
Yeah, I've been doing that. It's kind of funny. I've been recording YouTube videos in batches because I'm trying to do this thing. I'm not going to do it all the time because it is getting a little bit difficult, but releasing 5 videos a week. And I have things just stored up that I'm just like, okay, well, this week there's going to be 3 albums I want to review, whereas next week there's only going to be 1 album I want to review. So I just have random things stored up. I'm hoping that I don't like lose my eye, and then people are going to be like, hey, that was pre-recorded a long time ago before he lost his eye. And then there's some that I recorded that now I'm thinking back on, like, I don't know if I want to release that. I did one the other day based on that conversation that we had last week about should you feel bad for using Spotify as a music fan?
Yeah.
I went on a fucking rant, dude. Like a huge rant, and now I'm self-conscious about it.
Quit changing how you do thumbnails without telling me or giving me a heads up.
Those are specifically for music shows. Album reviews. My album review thumbnails will look like that from now on. I don't expect every. In fact,
right. And so when I do a movie review,
they should look however you want them to look.
Yeah.
I was looking at other channels the other day, and that's what gave me the idea for them. Is specific shows have specific thumbnail styles, and that's. I think that's at least how I want my videos to be. The retro reviews will look
but I don't see music reviews as its own series. I would see reviews in general. Like the only difference would be in the little box in the left, it was a movie review instead of album review.
Well, if you want to jump on board with that way, you can do it. Or if you want to do your own thing, that's cool too. Completely fine. It doesn't matter either way. That's the beauty of it. And guess what? If you do it your way and I do it my way, it's going to still look professional because I trust in how you do your design stuff.
You know what was really hard?
You're doing a good job at making your movie thumbnails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was nothing at all to it with the Chappie one.
Right.
That picture was already.
Well, no, I just mean in general, I think, were you worried when we redid them? Like, I might have to do a few extra things that I don't know how to do.
No,
that's not true. Because at first you were like, I don't know how to do some of this stuff.
Just because I didn't have it in front of me.
Right.
But now that I have it in front of me, like there's a whole lot of.
I labeled the layers for you and this and that.
Like just those blue blotches and how it's, purposely there when you screen the image or whatever. It's like, I just picked up on that by having it right in front of me. So.
I don't do mine like that, which is hilarious that I set that up for you, and I probably should have done that for me to make it easier, but I don't create them from scratch every time. That would be a nightmare. You don't save your files.
I do now.
Okay.
I have those templates right there on my desktop.
Yeah, I have everything laid out.
It's like I already have My favorite thumbnails are the ones that I do for Counterpart. I think those look really good. Yeah.
The TV one looks good. Something about that red just pops.
It does. But now we're talking about thumbnails. I want to play a funny game, or at least have a funny conversation.
Okay.
I don't think podcast movement... Huh?
Allegedly.
I don't think podcast movement is going on right now, but there's another convention. I kind of saw something.
Had you ever thought about, in the past, potentially going to a podcast convention?
Fuck no.
There was at one point where I thought, maybe I should do this.
Even before I took... Never.
It is
never in my podcast career did I think that would ever help me.
Honest take, that is nothing more than highway robbery to pay to go to that thing.
Yeah.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Unless you're just like a massive fan of podcasts. Like, that's one thing, I guess. If you're just like a huge fan of a shit ton of podcasts and you want to go see like Mark Maron record live or Doug Loves Movies or Sword and Scale or whatever those are. I'm sorry. Continue
on. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so I was thinking a lot about what you and I would do.
Explain what it is.
So I don't even know, other than it's this place. People think that it's gonna.
I feel like it's kind of like Comic-Con for podcasts.
Yeah, it's a Comic-Con for podcasting. It's a convention. I think a lot of people go there to like network and find. I'm sure there's plenty of seminars on just podcasting solutions and things you should do versus things you don't. Like, there are going to be people there that say, never put your YouTube or a podcast on YouTube.
Fuck that guy.
YouTube is a visual medium.
What a fucking idiot that guy was. I have no problem saying it.
Yeah.
That guy was a moron.
You're going to go to
moron.
You're going to go to Podcast Movement.
I hope he's hate listening to us right now and hears me say that. You're a fucking moron.
I hope that's what it is. That's what at least I think it is. You go to Podcast Movement, one person A is going to tell you that you should never put a podcast on YouTube, and then person B tells you, yeah, that's fine. It worked for me. That's actually my bread and butter. I make money putting my podcast on YouTube. It's one of those things where I think there are the things that I prefer when it comes to strategy and just how to deliver an entertaining podcast. I have my own philosophy on it.
There's no right or wrong.
There's no concrete way. So it annoys me when there are people that come in and are like, I saw this ad. It made me sick, Jay. I saw this ad on Facebook.
Sick a lot.
Adam Carolla is doing this, like, have you seen the videos like where Ron Howard is teaching like this film class online?
Is it on Linda?
I don't think it's Linda.
Sort of,
but
like
it's
Linda,
like
yeah.
It's just a Facebook video ad, and like Ron Howard teaches you how to direct a scene.
Yeah,
there was another screenwriter that was teaching screenwriting seminars on that. Adam Carolla has one for podcast solutions, and the video.
Is he the guy? Is he the guy? Really?
He's got a really.
I know he's got a successful podcast, but it doesn't mean that.
Look,
I'm here.
But it's also one of those things. It's like a tequila company. It's like the company might exist, but then you use a celebrity to buy it and endorse it. And
of course, yeah.
So I'm sure
I get it.
I'm sure this company just teamed up with Adam Carolla, but it made me so sick to see that he was doing that, because for one, I don't think in general you can do that. Like, we don't need that, period. Like,
of course, yeah.
Whatever we do is going to work for us.
And there's people out there that probably do.
Sure, but at the same time, I feel like you and I could help someone and be just as helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
But you could tell that he was reading from a teleprompter and a cue card, and it just felt like it felt like he was doing something that he did not believe in at all.
Right.
It just made me sick.
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, there are plenty of things out there. I think your money can go further if you're interested in stuff like this. Your money can go further by spending it learning different programs and whatnot, and how to utilize those programs in order to make your brand better.
Right.
But to actually build something, listen, nobody fucking knows. It really is, do you even have a good idea? And nobody can teach you how to come up with a good idea.
Right.
I say it all the time about graphic design. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn graphic design. I can teach you Photoshop. I can teach you any of that stuff. But I can't teach you, one, how to come up with good ideas. And two, I can't teach you how to train your eye to know what is good design and what is bad design, because it's completely subjective. And, you know, if all of a sudden you think Papyrus is a fantastic font to use, I might not be able to convince you otherwise. But no matter what you do, when you put it out there, a lot of people, and trends change, but a lot of people are going to think that you're ridiculous for having used that as your avatar font.
Yeah. But anyway, what I was trying to get to.
Do you want to take my Photoshop class? Should I teach Photoshop on lynda.com?
What would it be like if you and I hosted a podcast movement panel? I was thinking a lot about this, and it just made me laugh because I feel like someone could ask us to do a seminar, and it might last 5 minutes.
I would want to be just like Gary Vee. You know how he is just like a complete and utter jackass to the people that come and watches him? Because he's just honest.
Yeah.
He's just like, how can my business grow? He's like, what were you doing this weekend? Sitting around jacking off?
Yeah.
It's just like, because if you were, you're losing money. What you need to do is you need to get rid of all your friends,
right?
Sell your house, live in a cardboard box, and just fucking hustle. That's exactly what his takes are, and that's pretty much the truth. If you want to be a successful podcaster, you need to completely just you need to put your Xbox in the closet. That's what you need to do.
I think Gary,
or at least have a partner that does that.
I think Gary V's valuable, at least reassuring when it comes to. But I also.
I have a take on this. Go ahead.
I was a diehard follower for several months, and I really think he kind of helped me out a little bit. Sort of solidified my perspective.
I would
on
recommend
things.
him to a ton of people.
But now that I don't watch him consistently anymore, I'm finding a sense of humor about him.
Okay, so the other day I dipped in. I said, I'm going to check on what Gary V's doing. Lasted 3 minutes and said, it's about the same. And just turned it off. I was like,
he started like this.
It took him 5 minutes to say the word arbitrage. And then I was just like, he's just doing the same shit.
He started like a podcast just about whatever.
Yeah.
Like instead of it just being about real estate and marketing, things like that, like
ownership and leverage.
Turtle from Entourage was on, and they were just like talking about shit.
I saw an ad today for his fucking producer guy. What's his name? Joey? What's the guy's name?
Joey.
D-Rock. Yeah.
D-Rock, yeah.
There was an Instagram ad for him, and I was like, really? Do I need to? What am I going to do for him?
I'm sure Gary V
He's
was
busy as
behind
shit. Yeah, I'm sure he was.
Anyway,
D-Rock, I want you to go ahead and buy an ad on Instagram. It's the arbitrage of the success. If you're not doing it, you're leaving money on the table. Be the influencer.
And make sure you're adding value.
He's probably like, Gary, I'm working for you constantly. Like, I don't need to.
I have a sense of humor about Gary Vee now.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny to make fun of him. But I laughed at this post today. He posted this picture. It's like, about 16 months ago, I realized I was not going all in on content on the current internet, aka podcast, Instagram, and YouTube. I was doing my thing on Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat at the time, but I knew I could do more and I could do it better. This led me to focusing and really expanding my opportunities, and ultimately led me to writing Crushing It, which is the name of his
Crushing It.
I just love the idea of him being like, I realized I wasn't going all in when he's already doing more than anyone can ever imagine with their
He's
content.
saying that so hopefully people can relate to him. Do you think he really believes it? He was like, well, I'm sure he believes it. I'm sure at one time, yeah.
I'm sure he believes it because he has his ear to the ground every time a new app is created. So then he has to like log in and sign up. And how can I use this app to further my outreach for VaynerMedia?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, those are things like that. We've always known about that. But I think hearing somebody actually talk about just how valuable it is, and that's why we have this whole thing. It's like, okay, we get it. We'll do it. Like, it's just like, you know, and I'm sure we've talked about this before. We sort of did his method for a solid month with like Instagram. We went really hard on Instagram, and we didn't get a lot. And I know I get it. He would say, well, you only spent a month, but it's like, yeah, but that month that we spent putting out that effort, I could turn it around and spend that time working on YouTube and have that go a lot farther. I feel like it's just a juggling act with your time.
Since we're sort of talking about content creation here, I'd be curious to see someone like Christina, who has like almost 1,000 followers on Stardust.
Yeah, she's a star.
I would love to see her be able to translate that into other content. Like already had
100%.
Because the thing about us is like we kind of spread ourselves thin with like YouTube and podcasting. We are trying to figure out the best sort of avenues and platforms for particular ideas. But it's like there's also another way where if you just start on one channel or
absolutely
on Twitter or Stardust as well and grow as much as you can on Stardust and then bring those people over when you start your YouTube venture.
Yeah, and on whatever platform that you're doing something like that on, it's sort of a gamble, especially if you go quote unquote all in on that. I think you and I, from the get-go, we would want it to be via podcast, but we also were very self-aware and said to ourselves, we can't do that specifically because it's too much of a gamble.
Yeah.
It's too much of an ocean to sort of swim in. And we do need to, we cast a wide net to figure out what it's going to be. We stumbled upon the growth on YouTube, and that's sort of what we're focusing on right now. But obviously we're still doing, that's a great thing. I talked about this on the music show a little bit when I was talking about more of the music, but I think one of our biggest goals when we started Sight and Sound was just to get it operating with the wheels turning no matter what. So much so it's just like we show up, we do weekly and all these other podcasts and we upload them and we're in a groove, and that becomes so easy that you're just like, okay, well now I can do other shit. Now I can film 10 videos, or I can do a movie commentary while I'm sitting on the shitter or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you lay down while you did your movie commentary?
I wasn't laying down, but I was sitting in bed.
You were chewing a straw.
Like I had my chair pillow behind me so I could be propped up, but I was sitting in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Propped up like an old dog. I have to pee.
Yeah, let's take a break and then we'll talk movies.
Let's get into some movie talk. What are we doing? We're talking.
We got to. I want to talk to you about Weiss and Benioff first,
right,
and then we'll preview Black Panther.
All right, we'll be right back. Have you ever listened along with Sight and Sound and thought to yourself, man, I would love to have these types of conversations with other like-minded individuals? Well, there's a place for that. Head over to Facebook and be sure to join the Sight and Sound Facebook group. It was started by our listeners to share their thoughts and opinions, react and comment on episodes and topics brought up on episodes. You can even interact with Ryan and myself. It is a fantastic community that we are proud of, and we think you should join it. We've even made it easy for you. Check out the link in the description box of this podcast and get involved with the Sight and Sound Facebook group today.
We spent that 30 minutes talking about podcast solutions. I forgot to tell you that I ordered beard vitamins.
What is that?
Vitamins for your beard.
Oh, beard vitamins.
Beard. Why? It's a little patchy.
I think it's fine.
And plus, as time goes on, I'm losing more and more up top. I figured, why not fill that at the bottom of my face?
Yeah, but it's going to make you grow everywhere.
Is that true?
Yeah, you're going to have a fucking
I was going to
bush.
say, it's like erection medicine. Like, how do you just pinpoint one section of your body? It's going to go everywhere.
It increases your heart rate. Yeah.
It's evenly distributed throughout. You're absolutely right. Damn. I've got that back razor.
It's super strange. That's like really strange for me to hear. Like I wouldn't have pinpointed you saying to yourself, you know what? I want a better beard.
Yeah.
It's just very odd.
I would like a better beard. I mean,
okay.
I've got to take care of it. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
like a pet. I've got it. Take care of it.
I don't think I have a great beard, but I've always said to myself, you know what? This is the beard I've got.
Well, cover half of the price of the beard vitamins and I'll split it with you.
Oh, I don't want them.
Oh, okay.
I don't need them.
All right. I want to get your take on Weiss and Benioff writing and producing this new Star Wars trilogy. But first, I want to get into, we're going to talk about Star Wars. We're going to talk about Black Panther. So I wanted to have a very quick general conversation about just kind of geek fandom in general. The more and more I watch this Solo trailer, the more and more I just don't buy into any of what people are saying about it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the fear of it not performing. It's like, I'm looking at Solo, and just based on the fact that it's Star Wars, and I know the other movies that are surrounding it may, it's going to be a disappointment. If it's going to be a disappointment, it's going to be a disappointment because it clearly doesn't make as much as the other movies. But it's like, okay, then if it doesn't make Star Wars money, then it just becomes, it can make just any other blockbuster money.
Marvel money.
And so people are going to say, well, not up against Infinity War, but
well, that's what I'm saying. Infinity War is obviously
like what if if Solo makes Thor: The Dark World money?
Yeah,
that's still totally
Spider-Man money.
Like it's going to be a disappointment compared to the other Star Wars movies, but it's like, then again, you could look at it like, man, that's all we could ask for. We put it up against Deadpool 2 and Infinity War, and we're going to get $60 million opening weekend. It's like
they were having this conversation on The Watch this past week, and they were talking about the downturn of Star Wars films, and they sort of put it into perspective that every film had made less money and less money, but then they still threw out the fact that Last Jedi is like in the top 10 highest grossing films of all time.
Right.
Just like, why are we even having this conversation then? This is like stupid. It's fucking stupid at this point.
It's getting to the point where it's like, is LeBron James all time greatest
He's
NBA
really
player?
good.
It's like, it doesn't. Yeah.
He's really good.
How many times can we have this conversation?
Yeah.
It's like there aren't.
These are the types of things that that we've talked about before being like, at this point, it's sort of non-story. And it's just like, people are literally having a conversations just to fill time on air.
Well, I had a weird reaction, and weird in the sense that I think at any other point in my life I would have overreacted. But when I saw that Venom trailer, and everyone was freaking out about not seeing Venom, my gut reaction was like, so what?
Right.
This movie will be a movie about Venom, and just complaining about Venom not being in the trailer. It's like, I get the criticism. I understand if you just wanted to be like, they didn't really do a great job promoting it as a Venom movie, because it does look like it could literally be any action thriller.
Right. Well,
and that's valid, and I would agree with that 100%. I'm more so annoyed with the overreaction. Like, in 3 months, I might be able to state, Venom wasn't in that first trailer. But I don't need to have any sort of overreaction about that, because it doesn't ultimately change. We're going to get the movie. And once the movie comes out, it doesn't matter that first trailer didn't show Venom. You can make it a discussion about box office performance and things like that. Like, maybe if we had seen Venom in the trailer, but this also isn't the only trailer. We are months out from this movie even existing. So I just got annoyed with the overreaction. It's like, you know what? I don't care.
Well, that's a good thing, I think, about what we do, is because we don't just cover this one thing, movies, every single day, multiple times a day. We're not starving for things to create content about. You know what I mean? So we really do try to hit those big talking points, like Weiss and Benioff joining Star Wars. Real quick though, before we do get into that, I have a video coming next week that is specifically, and I'm going to let you guys in on the secret, I made it specifically to piss off Star Wars fans. And I'm so excited about it, because I had this realization that all this bitching, moaning, and complaining about the Han Solo movie, and you and I sort of had this conversation off air, but I don't care about people's attachment to this property. I don't care about their history. I don't care if it looks and sounds like Han Solo, because the longer time goes on, the further away the original trilogy is from today, and the harder it is for new. This is just facts. The harder it is going to be, because of the fact that it could potentially be dated, the harder it is for a new audience to form that same attachment.
Right.
So to all of you people out there who are complaining about Alden Ehrenreich not feeling like Han Solo, I've got a little bit of news for you. Alden Ehrenreich is going to be people's Han Solo.
Exactly.
From here on out.
Yeah.
Whether you fucking like it or not. And guess what? Nobody cares how you feel about Han Solo. It just, because it doesn't matter.
So
man. Get on board or get off the train.
I think what you're doing, you're speaking to what I was speaking to, which is the overreaction.
100%.
Because we're going to get to the point where there's still a valid discussion to be had. If you and I, 10 years from now, want to discuss who's the better Han Solo, Harrison Ford, Alden Ehrenreich, and debate why, that's a totally valid conversation. but it's the overreaction and the preciousness to it, and it's like that's what I'm annoyed with right now.
Yeah.
And I know that I've I'm victim of that too.
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of doing that, but
Yeah,
right now I'm
phrase,
just exhausted.
My favorite phrase that gets thrown out is like, "Yeah, but I have the right to be aggrieved by this and feel this way because I have an emotional attachment." It's like, yeah, you know what? I get it. I get that you feel that way, but you just kind of sound stupid. So just stop. Just stop complaining about it.
Well, then you just bring in the whole thing where it's like you still have that original trilogy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
nothing is changing about what. Yeah.
So,
Kendrick Lamar # fuck your feelings. 2018.
All right, so Weiss and Benioff. So if you don't know, if you didn't listen to movies, or if you're just not aware, this is for you. Weiss and Benioff, who are the showrunners, executive producers, writers, and sometimes directors of Game of Thrones, the two men behind that hit show. I don't know if you've heard of it. They are writing and producing a new set. It's not been labeled a trilogy, but it's a series of films for Star Wars.
Was it not pitched as a trilogy in that original news story from StarWars.com or whatever?
It just says film series.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah.
This is two things about this whole announcement. One is this is one of the most fascinating and cool announcements that I think has been made in a long time because it reminds me of a sports style announcement that the team has signed up the star player. The unfortunate thing about it is I wish there was more. This came out of nowhere. Like it literally came out of left field.
Yes.
I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't heard any speculation about it or anything like that. And I think it would have been fun, just if I'm just speaking specifically to being selfish here, I think it would have been fun to talk about this leading up to it and speculate.
Yeah.
All of the, are they going to sign? Are they not going to sign?
You mean like if it was announced a new series was coming and then you and I talked about who it might be helming
if we can have like that sort of free agency discussion.
Right.
But they just sort of swoop down and pick these guys up. And it's such a fascinating decision.
I think that if you looked back in the Sight and Sound backlog, there's probably an existing conversation where you brought up what it might be like if Weiss and Benioff did Star Wars. And I probably argued, they said they wouldn't do the same thing as Game of Thrones again. This story feels like it's a fanboy's wet dream. Like, this feels like the most obvious thing ever, but I never once thought it would happen. And so now that it has happened, and people are sort of speculating as to what this might be, if anything, and you and I have sort of had that conversation where Star Wars fans can only mention things that they have context of already.
Right.
So everybody always, all the time, goes to, oh, this is when we're going to get Knights of the Old Republic, whether it was the potential Netflix series or HBO series or on the Disney streaming service. I mean, that was the thing that when episode 7 was announced, I remember a lot of people automatically thinking, oh, they're going to do Force Unleashed, but in movie form. It's like they're not creating anything new or different. And so, but this story is not only a fanboy's wet dream, but it's also just the most obvious thing ever that while I'm looking at it, I don't think there's any question that this is Old Republic. And to put an asterisk beside it, I'm not saying that it's going to be Knights of the Old Republic, the game that we know it, but I just think if I'm connecting dots and because it feels like such an obvious thing, there's no question that they're doing an Old Republic series of films.
Well, it does sort of make me wonder personally, in what capacity were they brought on board to do some of this stuff? I mean, you mentioned the fact that they've directed things before, and I think that's where most people's mind can go. But we're about to look out on a landscape of Star Wars content and whatnot that is just going to stretch as far as the eye can see, which we've never had before. To a certain extent we have if you want to get into like books and comic books and all of this. But I'm purely talking about on the big screen and even the small screen in terms of live action. I'm curious because there was even discussion about would Rian Johnson even direct his trilogy?
Yeah.
Or if he would bring on other people. If they direct this, it's whatever. Cool. But I think what people should feel good about is just their track record of essentially being the Kathleen Kennedy or the Kevin Feige of Game of Thrones, and being able to assemble a group of individuals to make sure this show runs on the beat that they have in their own mind. That's so important, in my opinion, especially, and again, the farther this stretches out, I think it's a smart idea. Listen, Kathleen Kennedy's and Kevin Feige's don't grow on trees, just ask Warner Brothers. But the fact of the matter that these guys have been brought in, I think Kathleen Kennedy can at least, go to bed at night knowing that they at least know how to manage something that is a really big fucking deal.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
To bring in TV showrunners to do something like this. It's
Yes.
a great idea. If they end
J.J.
up,
Abrams.
if they end up directing, I'm not going to be surprised. I don't know that I want it. Like, if I had my preference, Star Wars needs to they need to diversify. And it's just
Do they need to, or
Yes.
should they? Because there's a big difference.
both.
Okay.
Both. I mean,
Would you say that they need to diversify just to have a different perspective? Not necessarily diversify just to check boxes. Is that a safe thing to say?
it's both.
Okay.
I think the Star Wars should lead
Okay.
by example. And
Haven't they already, with having Kathleen Kennedy be the head of this and casting female lead?
They
and-
have in front of the camera, but they
Yeah.
they still have a responsibility behind the camera as well.
right.
And
But,
I think
that's just two directors, though, right? I mean,
writers.
and writers. Okay.
Writers and directors. 95% of the writers ever used by Star Wars have been men.
Okay.
And 100% of the directors are white men.
Okay. That's a bigger Hollywood problem too. But you're right that they should lead by example.
I
in that regard.
I would like Star Wars to lead by example, but also I think it's just
should have a trickle down effect.
again, if having TV showrunners come in, that's a great way to sort of ensure quality product. At least the managing of the just the system in
Yeah.
play here, but also it's a subtle way to make sure that all of your films feel different
Mhm.
if you do diversify. It's just, I don't even know if people will be able to, I don't know how obvious it'll be. I don't know if a general audience will be able to pinpoint it,
Right.
but it's a way to ensure that your films feel different from film to film.
Or at least you're giving your films a sort of all of the different tools in order to be diverse. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen examples of this too. Obviously, I mean, I think you can look at the MCU and how they've done things different from film to film, but also they still feel like MCU films. And right, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I feel like Disney, if they're the overarching shadow that looms over all of these things, it makes sense for them to literally just transplant one model over to another.
Right.
I mean, I would think.
I mean,
so,
we're going to talk about Black Panther. I
Right.
mean, to me, and I haven't seen Black Panther yet, but the vibe that I'm getting, it reminds me of how people react to the Guardians of the Galaxy. Just because it was the most out of place of everything that had come before it, and
Yeah.
it was so fresh and so unique and from a completely different perspective as to how the Marvel movies have been told up to that point, that it was the greatest thing ever. And I feel like since Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think we felt that until this week. Like, Black Panther just feels like it's the most fresh thing to
Right.
happen in Hollywood and the MC, and all it took was a different perspective and just a completely different approach in front of the camera and behind the
They've
camera.
also had time on their hands too, and I think that there's something to be said of that. I mean, obviously Star Wars has been around for a long time, but under the Disney banner and sort of with this infusion of energy that they've gotten since the announcement of Star Wars being purchased by Disney,
Right.
if you look again at the MCU's model, the longer it went on, the more successful it became. All of a sudden, they had more freedom to do other things. All the way, I mean, what they're doing, and this could transition over into the Black Panther discussion, I say, I guess, but what they've done with Black Panther here in this film is, it's not just a different film because, and obviously we haven't seen it, but it's not just a different film specifically because Ryan Coogler was brought in. It's not just a different film specifically because it has almost an all-black cast, save for a handful of other people. But even outside of that, bringing in I mean, just the soundtrack thing is something completely out of left field.
Right.
If you would have given me 10 options to say, what is the MCU going to involve? A Kendrick Lamar album? I would have said, let's just get that one out right away. Doesn't even make sense. I mean, now stories coming out that fucking Childish Gambino himself, Donald Glover, participated in giving notes to the script. Did you see that today?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, whatever they're doing with this film right now is so cool. And it just feels like it's a party at this point over at Marvel. They're just like, yeah, fucking do whatever you want.
Did you see how cool it was to see that class picture?
Yes.
That 10-year class
Yes.
picture? It was awesome.
I mean,
I love that.
things like this, I feel like, when I saw that video, it felt like anti-Hollywood in the sense that movies over time haven't seemed like a family like this. It hasn't seemed like some sort of, alumni association hanging out and clinking glasses together. And it's great.
Yeah.
I think it makes my enjoyment of everything even greater.
Let me ask you this, and I think this might speak to, I just came up with this, so forgive me if it's not well developed, but I think this might speak to the sort of different approach to how everything Black Panther. When you watched Civil War and saw the very brief, small glimpses of Wakanda inside that film, did you think that you had already figured out that Wakanda was just, quote unquote, any other country? Like, I don't think with this Afro-futurist version of Wakanda that we're about to get, I don't think the Russo brothers could have ever come up with that without the help of the people that worked on Black Panther. So guess what I'm saying is, when I watched Civil War, I thought Wakanda was one thing, and I had already figured it out. And maybe there's a giant panther statue in the jungle, like in the distance. But with this trailer, like this crew, this story group said, no, Wakanda is fucking El Dorado. And it's an Afro-futurist world. And it's like, holy shit. I don't know if anyone like the Russo brothers could have ever come up with anything like that without the help of Coogler and company.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was necessarily on the forefront of what they were trying to do. I don't think that was like a...
I just think it speaks to, again, the diversifying the perspective. It's
I think
it's so fresh.
I think when they brought in Ryan Coogler, I mean, my own speculation with it is when they brought in Ryan Coogler, they probably said one of the things that we would like to do here is to give Wakanda its own identity. That is up to you.
Right.
That is
and sure, you have the comics to help influence that as well.
Yeah, and to have his interpretation of it. But I'm sure, I mean, Wakanda is... what I am hopeful for and what I want to happen, my expectations for this film, is I want Wakanda to be a character. We've had so many.
It will be.
We've had so many movies now that have taken place in New York that New York seems like this indiscernible place that just exists in these films. Doesn't have character to it anymore, which is sad because New York is one of it's a place in our country that is known for its character. But which is only purely down to the fact of how much it's reused. But anyways, yeah, I'm excited to see this new place. I'm excited to experience it and learn about this world like you would learn about a Harry Potter film and all this stuff. And it's just like, it just looks so interesting. It looks so colorful and vibrant. Like it has this culture and this history to it that's just been established for so long. I think it's really exciting.
Black Panther is, I think, going to be the first time that I go to the theaters in 2018. Yeah, it's the first time. So it feels like it's, the first real big event of 2018. And I think it's going to not only set a bar when it comes to film expectation in 2018, but right now it just feels like it's going to be impossible to cross unless you're another Marvel film this year. So I'm hoping in the good way. We're always thinking about Black Panther this year, but I hope it's not to the point where nothing else can like keep us excited. I'm not saying I want another film that has to be better than Black Panther or whatever, but it feels like it's already the biggest thing of the year.
Yeah.
And it's happening right now when we still have so much left.
Well, it's so unique because it feels like a celebration that us particularly aren't necessarily involved with in the sense of what it means to us because we're two white guys. But I mean, I can sense that. I can sense that it feels like a celebration and it feels like something very, very special. But even outside of that, I mean, just to watch the premiere and just see how just jovial everybody was around it, to see the cast interacting the way that they do and reacting to things that like they did back at Comic-Con, and how much that cast feels like a family. Then and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the music section, but just, I mean, how awesome was it, at least in our Facebook group specifically? I mean, the energy that came off of that soundtrack and people experiencing it collectively, like, honestly, coming from the music side of Sight and Sound, I haven't experienced that yet.
I was gonna say, when does that happen?
It hasn't. It has not happened to where, I mean, this is a cultural thing. It is a crossover thing. We talk about the pop culture crown, things winning the pop culture crown and this and that.
Right.
This is the definition of that. When you can cross over and cross boundaries and bring people together, that's what happened in our Facebook group. I mean, I've never been a part of that, where everybody was listening to this at once.
Yeah.
Everybody was celebrating it and talking about how good it was, their favorite moments. That's crazy, man. And it's so great that they dropped this thing. Again, we'll talk about it in the music section, but it just goes into the bigger discussion, I think, of how special this movie feels.
You know how black people love Larry David?
No, I don't.
You don't know that?
No, but that's great.
Black people love Larry David.
Okay.
I think when this movie comes out, I think black people are going to love Kevin Feige.
Right.
Like,
why does he wear that hat all the time?
This guy's woke because he's bald.
Is that right?
Yeah. Because I mean, he's just another Ron Howard looking guy. Ron Howard wears a hat. They both
I can't
wear
share
hats.
in that sentiment because I have hair and I wear hats all the time, but I don't know that affliction, so
Yeah.
I can't share. It was curious.
No, but look, I'm just excited.
Yeah.
And I'm probably nowhere near as excited as the black community is for this, but I'm stoked for movies in general. I'm stoked for everyone going to, again, it's going to feel like a communal thing,
right?
Similar to how Cloverfield Paradox felt. It felt like right now everyone is watching Black Panther, and right now everyone wants to talk about this. It's going to, I mean, you talked about sort of crossing the borders of just music and movies, but it's also going to cross a lot of borders when it comes to diehard film fans and general audiences. I feel like Black Panther.
Right. Well, that's what I want to talk about.
In a way that we couldn't just walk up to Joe on the street and be like, yeah, Blade Runner 2049, what'd you think of it? I don't know.
That's what I want to talk about, is Black Panther's legacy afterwards. I mean, obviously we haven't seen it and this and that, but, you know, reviews that have come out are very, very positive and this and that. But cultural impact is another thing. If, you know, we don't have a plethora of black superheroes and a film like this that exists. There have been, you know, people who have Spawn, I think, back in the day, but I don't know. Anyways, it's just like something like this hasn't happened. So I am anxious to see what the cause and effect is. You know, we saw what Wonder Woman could do. We saw what a female-led Star Wars film could do, and the trajectory that could impact with females in Hollywood. I'm interested to see if, you know, this thing does really, really well and impacts the box office. Not only do I think it can really affect things for the film industry, but I also think it can affect things for Marvel and the MCU. I mean, could Black Panther be the new quote unquote Iron Man? Could he be, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Iron Man, but could he be the person that's going to be the propel the next phase of the MCU?
I think without a doubt, if you wanted to follow Iron Man's trajectory and if you want to follow Wonder Woman's trajectory, I think there will be a sequel announced within weeks.
Oh, of course.
And we're going to get Black Panther 2. I think it's going to change the attitude of Hollywood in the way that Wonder Woman did. So we are going to see a lot of Black Panther copycats, if you will. But I also think that Black Panther, and I don't know if Marvel needed this to be proved yet again, but Guardians of the Galaxy proved it, and Doctor Strange proved it. Marvel can literally make a movie about anything and not worry about it. They might have used that excuse when it came to developing Black Widow, right? Like, I don't know if this is going to have an audience. It might be too small, or it might be because it's led by a female. And I'm not saying that that's right at all, but Hollywood is dumb. when it comes to reasons why they think things didn't perform well or this and that, blah, 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 expectations. They're just misguided. They're reactionary. Marvel will continue to prove that they can make a movie about anything, and Black Panther will be like Guardians and be like, I think that they will be bulletproof after Black Panther. So we're going to see that female Avengers movie that all of the ladies of Marvel have been championing the past couple months. It might be led by Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie and Captain Marvel and Black Widow. Like, I think we're going to get all of that after Black Panther, because there will be no more fear about any of that kind of stuff in Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that this is sort of the thing that's going to, because obviously Infinity War is going to mark sort of the changing of the guard. Both films will. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we've already got a sense of that it's begun.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, it feels like Black Panther is the first film in that. Like, I didn't feel as comfortable saying that with Thor Ragnarok, and definitely didn't feel that way with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But it just feels like this is where things are going to start, at least for the future. And I think that's incredibly exciting. But yeah, I can't wait to see it. I don't know when I'm going to see it. We talked about seeing it on Friday, but I don't know if that's going to be a thing or not.
Oh, God.
Well, specifically because, I don't know. Watch him. If we go, we're going to have to put a seat in between us. Because we talked about this. You react too much in movies. You talk a lot. I'm just kidding. You don't talk a lot, but you do react a lot.
That doesn't matter.
Are you going to be on your best behavior in the movie theater?
We've seen plenty of movies together, and this is now just getting brought up.
I made Sturgill sit in between us during The Last Jedi.
I would assume Sturgill would have always sat beside me no matter what, because he's my friend more than yours.
Yeah,
so
but I needed him to sit between us.
It wasn't going to go me, you, Sturgill. It would have always been me, Sturgill, you.
Right, but Kayla's with us too. I just needed somebody between you and me.
Even so, same ruling.
Yeah, in case I needed to leave the theater because I was freaking out like I did. Actually, I didn't do that in Green Room. That was Kayla. Anyways, you got anything else with Black Panther?
No.
Do you want to take a break?
Sure. It'll be the last break, and then we can do Plot You.
I need to watch
Jessica Jones?
I need to watch that trailer.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more sight and sound goodness. And I feel nothing for you. I feel nothing for you, Ryan.
I know.
Nothing at all.
I'm aware.
How stoked are you about this Plot You album?
It's the Black Panther of rock albums for me
this
really? Year. I mean,
I know it is. I know you're really jazzed on it. Listen,
it's the only album right now in existence.
Listen, let's just sort of lay it out in the open. I think we talked a little bit about this in our most anticipated discussion. We did that at the top of the year. This was nowhere on our radar. Like, if someone would have told us a year ago that you are going to be super jazzed about this band, The Plot and You, putting out an album, neither one of us would have been on board with it at all.
I would have been like, that one band that has songs about abortions and shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if people don't know, this is a band that's been around for quite a while as a sort of a metalcore band, but even at that, they were just like a very, very, very heavy band.
They were dark and kind of gross and vulgar. Yeah, it was never something that I was a part of at all. Which
Right.
is, to your point, it's not. We would have had no idea that we'd be anticipating this album.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this band and checking them out for the first time and just thinking, the band kind of sounds like a mirror. That's what I thought.
You thought that?
Early on, like their first, I think maybe EP or album that they dropped, they were on Rise Records, then they weren't on Rise Records, and over time, I guess they changed at some point. I haven't really gone back and listened to it because it just doesn't appeal to me that much. I've got to give a lot of credit to Luke, honestly. I think he was the one that really turned us on to some of this stuff.
Really?
Yeah, he really pushed the song "Feel Nothing" when it came out.
That's not how I remember it.
It was.
I remember it being you pitching it to me, like just dropping it to me because you thought it was a Snelling algorithm.
Well, I mean, I might have recommended it to you, but he was the one that pushed it on me. It just would have.
I just didn't remember talking.
It would
about
have never come on my radar. This band, it's interesting and it's fascinating that this is sort of happening to them at the point in their career. They've grown to be a bigger band, I think, because of the anticipation of this album. I think I looked recently on Spotify, and they were sitting at close to, I think, 300,000 monthly listeners, and I'm sure that's just going to grow. And that's all down to the fact that this band is taking, I would say, a risk with this album, at least to their existing fan base, and they are shifting their sound. To what extent, I don't think we know, but we'll talk about that the longer this segment goes on. Tell me about the very first time that you ever heard "Feel Nothing" from The Plot in You, which is their first single off of this album, called Dispose.
You linked the video to me, and again, it was sort of like, okay, you thought this would fit my algorithm, but it's The Plot in You, Jay.
Right.
I watched it. And right away, I was struck by the fact that the lead singer didn't look like the lead singer that I remember. In the sense that he looks like, well, I guess he just in general looks like Travis Pastrana, but he's just kind of wearing like
pretty normal looking guy.
He's just a normal looking guy. He's wearing like a hat like you're wearing right now, and he doesn't look like what I remember vocalists looking like. There's no bangs or swooped hair or anything like that. It wasn't what I imagined The Plot in You looked like at this particular time. And obviously you talked about comparing this band to a mirror, which for those of you who don't know, it's a very heavy, I mean, Amir doesn't even sing. It's primarily just ridiculous screaming vocals throughout. So struck right away when it's mellow and chill. And he's just singing there, and it's just like him.
Starts off almost as a ballad. That song.
I was gonna say it's just like him and his mic,
right?
Like it might as well just be him and his mic,
like a few piano notes. I think kind of happened at the beginning. Yeah.
So I felt the genre shift right away, but the part of that song that packs the most punch is that chorus. It's Absolutely. Not only was it unique to that band, but it was unique to everything I'd been hearing right now. And it's just down to, again, a couple of electronic sounds. But it meant...
And songwriting. Yeah.
But it completely meant everything to me.
Right.
At that particular point. And...
The song sounds massive. And it's because it's written that way. First of all, it follows essentially a classic songwriting structure. It's a pop song structure. Verse, chorus, bridge... and this and that, but it's all down to this climax of starting soft. Well, you start soft and building up to a climax of this huge, huge chorus, and then it brings you back down again.
Yeah.
And whatnot. It's an incredible, incredible song.
And you know how I love my bridges, Jay.
Yeah, BB Bridgers.
That bridge drives, hits home, and just overall, not only does it nail the Ryan Snelling algorithm, but it's like a perfect song to me.
It has crossover appeal. 100%.
And that's something that I want our listeners to understand too, especially a lot of the people in the Facebook group. I think when we have discussions about bands and more aggressive genres, they get turned off, or maybe they already think that they know how they feel about it. And you've challenged a lot of our listeners, and especially with this band, because I'm much more passionate about it, I would challenge our listeners to understand, if you don't like this kind of music, I will tell you, don't listen to any of their older stuff.
Yeah,
I'm going to push this album on you really hard though. The album is called Dispose, and it's coming out the Friday after this episode.
It's coming out this week.
This is this is a preview of it. I think that this is going to be one of the best rock albums of the year. And I was listening to, right now they have 3 singles out. So you can, like right now, you can get a taste of what this album might sound like or what we think it might sound like.
I don't think you're going to like it.
What?
I don't think you're going to like it.
Hold on. That's a completely different conversation. Let me keep going. Feel Nothing. When that song came out, we knew that we loved that song, but there was still kind of a discussion like, what if that's the single of this album and everything else is like everything else that they've ever done?
Exactly.
And then they came out with the next
song. That would
song.
be a travesty. I said it would be one of the greatest travesties in music in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And then they came out with the next single, which I don't think is better than Feel Nothing, but it's along the same lines. Like it follows the same syllabi as Feel Nothing does. I just don't think it's as good of a song.
The song structure is much more interesting. It's not quite as easy to pinpoint that song.
But it's the same in the sense that it's very quiet versus a much bigger chorus and then back to it again. And so
very anthemic feeling.
To me, it feels like the same syllabus, same rules. And then this other song came out, which isn't structured that way. But I've liked all 3 of those songs, and I think it helps me feel better. I think this whole album is going to be the way that I want it to be, instead of Feel Nothing just being a gem of a song with nothing else to support it. I think that I want our listeners to understand that I think that this might be one of the best rock albums of the year, because listening to those 3 songs, if you're turned off by screaming or whatever, I don't even know if 10% of these songs have screaming vocals. Like, and if they are there, they're auxiliary, they're supplemental. It's like, it's never anything that's like you said, there's plenty of crossover here, and it's not that exclusive of a sound to me.
Yeah, listen, there are times I think on this podcast, especially with music, because it is so vast and everybody has wildly different tastes. You know, I would say there's very few times where we will ever bring up a music topic like we have with Black Panther that most people are just going to be like, yes, this is clearly the thing that everybody's excited about. I mean, even if we were to bring up Drake, Evan DeGraff would turn it off. But I think the reason we could obviously just bring this up because it's something that we're both looking forward to and anticipating. But I do firmly believe that this is going to be an album that is going to get a lot of new fans on board.
Yeah.
This whole thing completely caught me off guard in the sense that we've thrown out the comparison to Bring Me the Horizon, especially with that first song. The second song, I saw them doing things a little bit different to sort of make them a little bit more, just to sort of separate themselves from that band. The third song that they dropped, the third single, they're not even playing in the same sport as Bring Me the Horizon with that song. That song to me reminds me more of the 1975 than Bring Me the Horizon, specifically down to certain decisions that they made with the song. That song has, just random sounds popping in and out of the music and just layers that complement each other, but just, it's an onslaught on your ears just in the sense to sort of figure out everything that's going on. You can listen to that song 100 times and really never figure out exactly everything that's happening.
There's a portion of it, of that song that is like pop punkish. And then the end of the song has this great big, like, it's just an extended ending essentially of a song.
Very ethereal, sort of vibey moment.
Yeah, and it feels like I could like cut a movie trailer to it. Like it's just so kind of weird and bizarre, but it still sounds so good.
Right. And I think I was sort of joking about you not liking the album. I think this is going to be an album that's going to take you a long time to get into, because I do think now personally, because they have a teaser on Spotify, which doesn't give you a lot because it's the way it's cut together. It's supposed to be a little bit obscure and it's supposed to just isolate certain things. But I have listened to that very, very intently, and how it was sort of put together and some of the things that they were showcasing and the trajectory that they sort of shown with these songs, of course, the first single was going to be the big song that was going to showcase this style shift, but it was going to be a hit. It has hit single written all over it. And it was still going to make people feel relatively comfortable, I think. The second song, like I said, had a few more ideas, so many vocal layers going on in the chorus of that second song. The third song, to me, was never supposed to be a hit. It was supposed to be, for me at least, and the way I've seen singles be released throughout the years, a flag in the ground, a statement saying that this is what else we can bring to the table. These very interesting, crazy ideas. And just listening through to that teaser, it just sounded like there were so many, again, different ideas going on this project that I think they could have easily made a full album of Feel Nothings, right? They could have just made banger after banger, which would have been more along the lines of a Bring Me the Horizon. Bring Me the Horizon also has the song Doomed at the front of their album that, to me, even though it plays well on the album, it doesn't feel like any of the other songs just because it's so different. Like the guitars in that song are very, very buried. They're very, very buried. They're deep down in the mix. It's primarily an electronic song, but it's very dark. I feel like with this album that they are going to get really fucking weird on this thing, that they are going to almost run in the opposite direction of just writing radio hits, which they could have easily done.
So I'm confused because I agree with literally everything that you just said. But no,
I think it's going to be a challenging album.
No, I mean, I'm saying that's what I'm expecting and hoping for.
Absolutely.
So you were using that argument to say that it might take me longer to get into it, but that's what I'm clamoring
You're anticipating. Yeah.
So, and I think, I mean, for one, when I listen to all the teaser on Spotify that they have out right now, there were so many things that I picked out and thought that I would love.
I think it's going to be a challenging album in the sense that I don't think even for the most seasoned of music listeners, they would be able to listen to it for the first, second, or third time and just have it click with them.
So, okay. I think it's going to be maybe harder for some people to get into it. I don't think I fall in that category.
Okay.
Because I think I have a greater understanding as to what we might get. But
and I think I'm more comparing it to something like with Light We Made with Balance and Composure.
That one did take me a while to get into, yes.
I just think that there's going to be so many, and I honestly don't have much of a basis for making that statement, but I think there's going to be so many interesting ideas that it's going to keep people interested. I don't think it's going to be so obscure where it's like, is this even music? It's just like, I think they are really, really relishing this idea of this being a risk.
When it comes to Bring Me the Horizon, especially with their last album, I think it's probably 50 what was that?
50 favorites?
I think it's 50-50 when it comes to like bangers versus...
Really?
Yeah.
That album for me, it's like full of singles.
But I'm saying that in a good way.
Okay.
Like I'm just saying, like I think that maybe half of that album is Feel Nothings and half of them are departures, but I still like them.
Interesting.
I'm just saying that that doesn't bother me. When it comes to this in general, reminds me more than anything of what happened with The Color Morale and No Hope.
Okay.
Every bit of it. I think
interesting.
No Hope launched them into a stratosphere of a different level of fandom because of their sound and their completely different take on their own band and their sound. And it's funny because Feel Nothing came out so long ago. It came out like last summer, I think.
Yeah.
And we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for this album.
This album's been done for 7 months. Did you know that?
Yeah, you told me that.
Sitting on it.
You told me that. And
not a fan of that, but anyways.
I just think it's so interesting that the more time it's like a movie for me.
Yeah.
And the way that I anticipate movies for months, I'm not as involved as a music fan, and our listeners know that. It's nuts to me that I've been anticipating this like a movie when I don't know how many bands could get away with something like that to keep my attention. And I think, and if I feel that way, I know that there are millions of other people that are just waiting to hear this album for the first fucking time.
Yeah.
And to the point that you've already made, I think their listenership will explode.
100%.
And I will think they will be the next big thing, similar to what happened with The Color Morale and No Hope. I'm serious.
No, I hear you.
I think it's very
I'm
reminiscent.
laughing at how that was squandered, but more on that and more than music. Anyways.
I'm just right now, how I feel about it, it's very, well, actually, this is different because I didn't even quite feel the same anticipation for No Hope as I do, because I didn't know what it was going to be. And actually, the first song that they put out, I don't really care for. Learned Behavior or whatever it was. I thought that chorus was awful when that came out. So this is like on a different magnitude.
I don't mean to, put false hope or maybe place an unwanted bit of expectation onto the shoulders of this band, but all the things that we're talking about right now go into game-changing albums.
Yeah.
They go into albums that start something new. First of all, there is a good side to this and a bad side to this. The heat meter is so low on this genre of music and rock music that one bad thing that happens is great albums that could be game-changing albums any other time could come out and they could fall on deaf ears and nobody could give a shit, and the band becomes disillusioned, and they, like, for instance, you okay there?
I hit the mic on.
For instance, like 100th's album, I feel like could have done something like that, and I'm sure they got a bunch of new fans, but if that album would have came out like back when this music genre was even bigger, I mean, they would be like one of the biggest fucking bands on earth.
Right.
Anyways, that's probably not true, but regardless. So you could have that happen, or this could be they're only chasing safety, or a Define the Great Line, or dare I say, I was going to say something, I'm not going to say it. It could be that album. I was going to say, no, I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
Damn it.
If I say what I was about to say, so many people would be really annoyed with me. But anyways, I'll tell you off air what I was going to say. This album could light the spark that could
brings the First Order down.
Absolutely. It could mean so much. And I hope that it does, because I want it so fucking bad. I wanted Balance and Composure to be this band.
So it was probably last fall. Like, Feel Nothing had been out for a little while, but I knew that we were officially ramping up for this album, and I had posted this song in our group.
Yeah.
And some of my friends that I play music with in my band, they listened to Feel Nothing and were like, "Oh, it's nothing new. That's where the genre already is." And I was like, "Give me another example, because if that's the case, then I'm going to get back
simply
into
not the case."
I was like, and then his example was like, Too Close to Touch.
No,
this is Too Close to Touch has already written all these songs, and I said, and I listened to them. No,
right,
that's not true.
And it comes down to, and I've talked about this before. See, a lot of that comes down to focusing on the wrong things. We've talked about this with Under Oath. When Under Oath came out, people thought the recipe was singing and screaming that made them special, and that's not the case. It comes down to songwriting, and that's exactly what this band is doing well.
Yeah,
they're not just good songwriting, but interesting songwriting. Again, I'll go back to the 1975. The 1975 are a fucking pop band. What's special about that? Nothing, except for the fact that they put a lot of care into making their music really, really interesting to listen to.
To be fair, you did pick out a band that has a particular sound as well.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I mean, like, just the sound of his vocals and things like that.
What do you mean?
Like, not just like how their singer sounds.
Oh, just like an individual sound.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can Kendrick Lamar, just another rapper?
No.
Exactly. Like, there are things that he does beyond just the surface,
right,
that make them special. And that's what I think this band is doing, or at least I hope they look. What if this album's terrible? That would be awful.
I don't know if I will ever love music again. I mean, even with the stuff that I liked last year, there was no level of anticipation for it. Again, this is like Ryan Snelling anticipating a movie level of anticipation. And it's funny, this reminded me of this third song. I can't remember what it's called, but the third song that came out, I sent it to Eric.
Isn't it called like Disposable some Fix or something?
I don't remember.
Like that?
Fix is in it, yeah. I sent it to Eric, and Eric listened to it and was like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not a Plot and You fan. And I was like, but it sounds nothing like Feel Nothing to me. Like they're two completely different songs.
All three songs do feel different enough.
I was like, how do you know? Like, how can you tell that?
Right.
They're different songs. It's like, it's weird. I don't know.
Music is disposable, man. That's people's attitudes.
Yeah, but it's like if the first song, like if the first Seosin song you ever heard was You're Not Alone, and you were just like, I don't know if I'm a Seosin fan, but it's like, wait a minute, have you not heard Follow and Feel or Come Close? It's like, it was the fact that he had a palette of 3 varying songs, and it was just like, I just don't know if I'm into this band. It's like, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to me.
I'm sure there's some people out there wondering, with what I've said about this lighting a spark and being a big sort of album that could push the heat meter even further. I'm sure there's some people thinking to themselves, well, there already are big bands out there who are sort of carrying the genre, bands like Architects, bands like, and even I think Architects is outside of, I think, the discussion of Plot and You to a certain extent. Bring Me the Horizon. And all,
we both compare them to Bring Me the Horizon, but those two bands themselves are different.
Right. And that's true, but those are outliers, first of all. And those are bands who have had a constant upward trajectory. When Bring Me the Horizon releases That's the Spirit, they're releasing it on the back of albums that are already incredibly successful.
Right.
One of the things that sort of drives these like big albums that just change things is the fact that collectively people are discovering it for the first time. When people discovered Under Oath and it was this thing that was shared around, same thing with like Nirvana. It's like when this thing is shared around, have you heard that? Da, da, da. And then it grows and grows and grows, and your fandom grows with the popularity of the band. That's what sort of makes bands just eclipse things throughout an entire genre.
Yeah.
That's why when, like, for instance, if Bring Me the Horizon drops another album and it's fantastic, it's probably not going to, it's going to probably bring new fans to the table, but a lot of other people are going to be like, that's that band doing that thing. They're huge. Like, I don't think there were bands coming up and be like, yeah, let's be a part of this music scene when Metallica released the Black Album. It's just like, that's this unattainable thing that we can't do. But I'm excited about it. I think we're going to review it together.
I hope so.
Next weekend. How confident are you about that? You will have had less time to spend with it.
I'm fine.
Good. I'm excited to do it. Let's talk real quick before we end this segment and get into television. Let's talk about this Black Panther soundtrack. I do have a review out for it already. Spoiler alert, I guess I gave it an A+. I think this thing is fantastic. It completely caught me off guard. Mm-hmm. Did you watch my review by any chance?
No.
Okay. The thing that I went into that review with was I was going to lower the bar. I was going to lower my expectations.
What did you think you had to because it was a movie soundtrack?
Exactly.
I mean,
well, simply because I'm not going to review a quote unquote movie soundtrack with the same sort of criteria that I'm going to review an album with. I'm not going to talk about like this felt like a cohesive body of work.
And you know, the approach might be, how do I supplement a film? And there's less time spent on it, say, than
different artists
on it. Yeah.
I mean, how can you expect something like that to work?
Right.
And it would have been fine. However, this project, this is an album. Mm-hmm. To me, personally, this feels like Kendrick Lamar canon. I think you can put it in his pantheon of albums. If we can put The Life of Pablo in Kanye West's canon, if we can put More Life in Drake's canon, or just any other mixtape for that matter,
right? You
have to put that in this. Even though... or you have to put this in Kendrick Lamar's. Even though there are multiple songs on this album where Kendrick Lamar is not the focal point, the part that he played in this is so crucial. He played the Kevin Feige role on this album. He created this, or just a director in general, he created this landscape. He created this feel and this vibe and this connection between all the songs and said, you perform on this. He directed people and how to perform, how to get this emotion out of them. and the people came to play.
Yeah.
Did you listen to this?
I haven't listened to all of it.
Right.
I've listened to, I think I listened to most of it from start to finish, and then I've just kind of been skipping around once I've been able to look at the featured artists and see
Right.
what I can pick out. But I, as far as just someone who's not really that into hip hop,
Right.
this is on the end of the spectrum that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate
Full
that.
of bangers.
I don't know if I would. It's not to me,
Right.
but this is an album that I do enjoy.
Well,
But-
I mean, there are like legitimate pop songs on here. Like you have the song with SZA that was the lead single off of this. Then you also have the Weekend song, which is the last song, another just straightforward pop song. And
See, I don't know if I have gotten to that one.
so it's the last song on the album.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, it says not my favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's one of the only songs that doesn't sound cohesive. Like it sounds like it just should have been on another album.
Yeah.
And then Kendrick Lamar's verse on it literally sounds like they said, "Oh, cut it here. Let me jump in. Okay, now play the rest of the song." It just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But other than that, it's just fantastic, man. It has an identity to it.
Yeah.
Which should, and I think a lot of people would say, well, movie soundtracks, they do have an identity because they're writing the songs, or the songs are supposed to be for this film. And I get that, but like all of the instrumentation sounds like it was essentially recorded like in the same session and this and that.
Right.
It's a fantastic feat, man. And it's exciting because not only Kendrick Lamar, but all the other people who are on this. Listen, if there's music fans listening to this conversation right now, you're probably going to think I'm an idiot for saying this, but it's true. Kendrick Lamar is going to be exposed to a ton of people who have never listened to him for the first time because of this. That's just the crossover appeal. This is the definition of, crossing boundaries again.
I mean, it's the most involved I've been with Kendrick since we started this podcast.
Yes.
And we've already talked about all of his albums in some way or some form.
Yeah,
on here.
I mean, this solidifies his spot on the throne of rap and hip hop right now, even more so. I mean, listen, I don't think Kanye could have pulled this off. I don't think Drake or Jay-Z could have pulled anything like this off. Which Jay-Z has done this in the past. He did that whole album for American Gangster back in the day. But then you have Manchester Orchestra that did the Swiss Army Man soundtrack and this and that. But it's just next level. We already have, in my opinion at least, an album of the year contender. And people should spend time with it if they haven't.
Best soundtrack since Drive?
I don't know. I mean, this was all originally created music, so that's an even different thing. Like, I don't like considering this a soundtrack. Like, I consider it an album.
Okay,
inspired by
best movie soundtrack.
Yeah.
And before that, Drive.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even like what the Drive soundtrack just has some cool songs on it. Like,
okay, but
songs I've heard before.
It's a good movie soundtrack.
It's all right. I like the Little Nicky soundtrack is really good.
All right, you're overthinking this.
The
just wanted to know what
the Mighty Ducks 2 soundtrack is really good.
Okay, Space Jam is obviously the
Head
other.
Whoop, there it is.
It went Space Jam, Drive, Black Panther, and nothing else in between.
I'm sure there's things. I'm not
Guardians of the
thinking
Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, Ryan Coogler came out. I was fascinated to know how this sort of came to be. Ryan Coogler talked about the seeds of this were sort of sown before Black Panther was even really a thing with him. I think it was after Fruitvale Station. No, that's not true. Ryan Coogler met Kendrick Lamar just as a general fan. He had done Fruitvale Station. I think maybe he's working on Creed at the time.
Right.
Basically said, man, I want to work with you. And he said, Kendrick Lamar at the time was like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's cool. Yeah, we'll do that. And then all of a sudden Black Panther came around and they were going to put together a soundtrack and Kendrick was going to contribute a few songs to it.
Yeah.
And Coogler brought him in, showed him a cut of the film, and he basically left and called Ryan Coogler up and said, dude, I don't want to contribute a few songs. He's like, I want to do a whole album.
That's great.
And he said they passed it on to, Kevin
Powers that
Feige.
be.
Yeah, Marvel, and they were completely down with it, which is great that they just let them have that freedom. And he basically developed the entire concept and, how it was going to sound and everything while he was on tour, brought in all these people and gave them the stage.
That's
and
dope.
It's really, really awesome. I hope that they do more stuff like this in the future. That's another thing too. I'm sure somebody's going to have this thought in their mind. Yes, I'm aware that there are artists and bands and this and that do contribute to movie scores.
Tom Morello on Iron Man.
Explosions in the Sky. They've done a ton of stuff in the past. And actually, you know who had a really good soundtrack? I'm just now remembering this. Bright had a fantastic soundtrack.
Oh,
I'm
right.
not going to
Yeah.
say fantastic. It had some good songs on it.
Logic had a song on it.
Alt J had a great song on that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Way better than their entire album last year. Anyways, that's all I've got for that. I don't need to take a break. Do you need to take a break?
No.
Let's get into television discussion. Jessica Jones.
Can I ask you a question real quick before we get into
I was
Jessica
going to ask
Jones?
you a question.
Yeah, but it's not about Jessica Jones.
Oh, okay, good.
I just wanted to... Are you going to stick with Letterman, or were you only interested to see what that show was about in that first episode?
Let me just say this. My intrigue on Letterman, the heat meter, is somewhere around I don't care. But
You mean just him in general?
just it existing.
Okay.
But the thing that's going to keep me coming back and watching this every episode is how it's being distributed. The fact that it's coming out one a month, I think is great. Like I like to watch Netflix while I eat my dinner. And sometimes I don't want to sit there and just fucking flip through a million things.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to watch it when this is on. This is great to have on in the background.
Did you watch Clooney?
I didn't watch Clooney yet.
Oh,
This is a great show to have on in the background while you're playing Bejeweled or you're on Pinterest or something like that.
Oh, it's way more important than that, Jay. Jesus Christ. The Clooney
That's how
episode
I
is fire.
experienced. I haven't seen it.
The Clooney episode, I think, probably beats out Obama's.
According to Andy Greenwald, this show is nothing and it's overindulgent.
He's completely wrong about it. And Letterman just proved him wrong, essentially. I did not know. I just figured it was going to be a talk show. When you go from Barack Obama and then say George Clooney, I thought, okay, that's kind of strange.
Right.
But then again, maybe he's just doing whatever he wants. But no, the Clooney episode is probably better because it's just as topical.
Right.
And maybe I have a Kentucky bias because they talk about Kentucky and how he grew up, and they go to his parents' house in Augusta, Kentucky. And so there's a little bit of that flavor. But overall, it was somehow just as important as Obama's, and I just didn't know that was going to be the case.
Do we like George Clooney? I mean, I don't mean in like a way like...
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, I just didn't know how much of a fan we were.
I don't like when he's Coen Brothers George Clooney.
Yeah.
And does things like Hail Caesar and
Really?
Suburbicon and what was that other movie? Monuments Men.
Didn't Coen Brothers, did they do Burn After Reading? No.
Yeah.
I like Burn After Reading. I thought
It was okay.
great.
It was
a
okay.
great movie.
I don't like comedy George Clooney.
Really?
I'd rather see something like Ides of March or I don't know. Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite movies of all time, but he's obviously playing up comedy there. So I don't like Coen Brothers Clooney. I'll just say that.
Fair enough.
I would rather see him be a little bit more dramatic or just have another flavor in general. But
I had a question for you.
okay.
What's a heat meter on Jessica Jones? Now, before you answer, let me just say this. Let me remind you of the last two
You don't have to remind me of
Marvel things, because I think they feel very different. You have the Defenders, and then you have Punisher. Punisher, to me, feels like it just had nothing to do with this,
right.
and doesn't even factor into my heat meter. But go ahead.
The Punisher was a kick to the nuts.
It should make us super excited, right? Naturally.
Yeah,
for the next Marvel thing?
But it doesn't, because, I mean, she was a part of the Defenders, and I thought Defenders was forgettable, and she might be the least involved Defender of all the Defenders, right?
Right. I got a lot out of her being in the show. I thought she was one of the best parts of
I mean,
the show.
it's just... It's more so commentary on the show. I don't have anything against Kristen Ritter or the character or anything at all. And I like season 1 of the show. I think it's in the top tier of all the Marvel Netflix series. It would go Punisher, Jessica Jones, Daredevil.
Right.
And those are the 3 best, without a doubt. Here's what I'm worried about. And again, we are reacting to the first trailer that came out earlier in the week. I think there are a lot of elements in the trailer that feel like it's season 1 over again. But at the same time, this trailer I enjoyed more so than the campaign leading up to season 1. I was so annoyed with the season 1 campaign because I didn't know anything about Jessica Jones. We had just come off of Daredevil, and I thought, well, that's kind of a step down. Daredevil comes out with a bang, and everyone's anticipating what Marvel's going to look like on Netflix. And then you go to Jessica Jones, which is a character that nobody knows anything about, really. I mean, I know that Kayla enjoyed the comics, but other than that, no one else around me had any gauge. Kevin Marks is going to be like, wait a minute, I did. So
you're an outlier, Kevin.
That marketing campaign for season 1 was so annoying because they would just show like a foot planting, like she had just been flying and she planted and landed on the ground.
Yeah.
And then it would just cut to the logo. And I just remember thinking, you're not telling me any fucking thing about this show. I got so pissed.
It's like Venom.
Yeah. I did a video parodying that on Film Beef, and it was just me taking a drink, and then it cuts to the Jessica Jones logo. And I was like, my teaser is just as informative as the Netflix material. So this one right out of the gate, the campaign and the marketing and everything, I am more impressed by it than I was leading up to season 1. So I think this season is going to be bigger and it looks better, but at the risk of feeling redundant, if that makes any sense. So right now I'm kind of stuck in the middle and hoping for the best. I know that there's a tease for Kilgrave to come back, and we already knew that, so that doesn't necessarily really bother me, but I don't know. I'm just kind of stuck in the middle right now.
Stuck in the middle with you.
Jimmy Eat World.
No, what? Stuck in the middle is a Jimmy Eat World song. Yeah, I think the biggest thing working against this show is that it's associated with the rest of the Marvel shows on Netflix for me. Like, I just
can't get excited.
Again, I loved Punisher. You got to take it out of the equation, though. I'm just still don't care, and I want to care, and hopefully I can turn this on and get really invested in it and watch it. But it's just like, it's hard for me to get excited for a trailer of something I'm not that interested in.
Right.
I take that back. It's not that I'm not interested in it. It's just I haven't been interested in what they provided me up until this point. And that's unfortunate because I think for me, Jessica Jones, it's a show that's supposed to feel different. It has this very like investigatory sort of feel to it. And I like her approach. Not her approach. I like their approach to telling the story. I like the fact that there are a lot of underlying themes in the show that maybe get brought up that you wouldn't get in something like, Iron Fist with domestic violence and this and that. And I think all that stuff is powerful and it's really good. And I'm not going to get down on anybody for being excited about it. It's just, it didn't really grab me. My heat meter didn't flinch at all from really watching that. But I am excited I guess I'm excited that TV, it feels like we finally have something for everybody to get on board with, because I don't think we've had that yet this year, at least something that everybody maybe not even everybody, but there hasn't been a big pop from TV this year. That's not talking about the quality of what we've gotten.
Yeah.
But I thought we would have a more collective conversation about Altered Carbon even. And it's just, I'm not feeling that buzz yet from it.
I think it's interesting that since the first season came out, the social landscape that we're in culturally, it makes Jessica Jones that much more relevant. Yeah. Like, there was so much more power to that one joke that she made where that sounds very rapey of you, after the guy says, I don't take no for an answer. And I think, like, if that was in season 1, I would have been like, oh, that's interesting. But now that we are where we are culturally and we're being more mindful of that kind of language and things like that, then it has that much more of a punch to me. And it's like, wow, that actually, I wonder if any of that will carry over and sort of make this more of a bigger deal to everyone in Hollywood who's paying attention to things like Me Too and things like that. Like, I wonder if season 2 of Jessica Jones will be that much more of a statement because of the landscape that we're in now, as opposed to when season 1 came out.
Is there any desire or need or even want for these Marvel shows on Netflix to begin to start at least pulling on threads of things that are tied together for you? Like, do you think they need, because I feel like even leading up to the Defenders, everything just felt so isolated and specific. Like, it just seemed like one day they were like, oh, things are connected because we're in New York. And it just didn't feel like the storylines were as overarching. And I guess maybe that's not necessarily fair because you had like Madame Gao and the Hand and this and that. But do you need the show moving forward into this like phase 2, I guess, of all this? Do you need it to feel a little bit more connected? Or you just need the shows to be good?
It doesn't matter if the shows are good. I wish they wouldn't.
Really? It doesn't matter if they're good to you?
No, it doesn't matter, comma, if the shows are good.
Okay.
Or none of that matters if the shows are good.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You thought I was just blindly like, it's got Marvel on the front. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I did. That's why I was like, what?
No.
This is like...
It doesn't matter.
Ryan Snelling.
It doesn't matter how connected they are as long as the shows are good.
Fanboy Snell.
I wish they didn't do obvious things like just putting, have you seen the green thing lately? Because up until this point...
they had Captain America's name in the trailer.
And I like that.
Okay.
I like that because that's the only place where that can exist on television. Yeah. It's like...
No, I get it.
They can talk about knowing Captain America or not, and that's cool to me.
Right.
But that's better than just feeling like you can't mention it. I have always thought that was so weird that that's how the Netflix series treat themselves in the MCU.
Yeah,
I've always thought it was weird.
Yeah, and this is, I guess technically it's the second show to come out since the Defenders, but it's the first one that's sort of like really heavily tied. I mean, obviously it's the first one that's tied into the Defenders of the characters that we saw.
Yeah.
Punisher should have been in Defenders. Anyways, I think there would be more weight to the shows if we could sense some sort of connective tissue beyond with all of them, just besides like, oh, have you heard about that gang, the Hand, or the fact that, hey, we're in New York. You know, who else is in New York?
Right.
Daredevil.
And I guess the only reason why...
Well, I guess it's not necessarily true because we did have Luke Cage obviously popped up in Jessica Jones.
But then again, that's why I'm saying it only matters if it's good because the Defenders is where it all came together.
Right.
And it's my least favorite of all of them, maybe. Well, aside from Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably a toss-up between Defenders and Luke Cage. Iron Fist is definitely last.
I'm just all like when I think back to Defenders, I don't necessarily have a bad taste in my mouth about it. It's just I was just kind of like,
it's forgettable.
I could have either had it or left it, I guess.
Yeah, I
don't know, but I'm excited to at least sit down and watch the show. Hopefully, it does grab me. I mean, I know it's going to be on, considering
Kayla all about it. Is she going to watch it?
I'm sure she's definitely going to watch it if I can pull her away from Outlander.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. She is so into that show.
What a weirdo.
It's not bad. It's actually not terrible. I mean, I haven't really watched it heavily, but it's an interesting show. I mean, I've had it on. I haven't minded the fact that it's on when I'm doing whatever.
Yeah.
But they do some weird things in the later seasons. Anyways, more Outlander talk on our new podcast for TV Time.
Yeah.
Is anybody covering Outlander for TV Time?
Probably not.
I don't know. Where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Over the weekend, I put up a Chappie commentary. So if you, for whatever reason, want to watch Chappie, you can listen along to me doing that.
I love that's your take. It's like, if you want to.
It's there for you. I put it out.
Why was Chappie the one? I know it needed to be something on Netflix, but why Chappie? It could have been anything else.
Because that
it's like the Domhnall Gleeson of films.
That is one of those examples where, especially when I'm just constantly surrounded by film Twitter and film coverage on YouTube, they have always just kind of railed on Chappie, and and made it like an example of what not to do. And
really,
yeah. Weird. And it's like, people are under the assumption that it like ruined Blomkamp's career, and maybe it has, but I remember coming out of that theater and not having any of that negative connotation. Like, the only thing I agreed with was it's the least superior of Blomkamp's films, but it's fine. And I like it for what it is, and I enjoy it. And so but I hadn't seen it since theaters.
I liked Elysium.
I did too.
That was really good.
I did too. So this was purely sort of an affirmation that I wasn't crazy, because I have been fine with the film, even though people are just like, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't understand why Neil Blomkamp didn't get Alien 5. Like, it always made much more sense to me that Neil Blomkamp get Alien 5 over Ridley Scott getting Alien Covenant.
Right.
And we saw how that turned out. And it's like, but people argued against that point, even back in the day. Like, people on Collider. It makes way more sense for Ridley Scott to do Covenant than Neil Blomkamp get Alien 5 after Chappie. And it's like, what? Why? So.
Well, now Neil Blomkamp has so many places where he can distribute his work. So he should just make something for Netflix.
I agree.
Just save his career. Well, not save his career, but just rejuvenate it.
That's the other annoying thing, too. It's like, I just watched Chappie, and it's like, this movie is not a career ender. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's just not that big of a deal.
It's not Fantastic Four.
So
Josh Trank situation.
Exactly. So I wanted some affirmation. I wanted to update my opinion on the film, and my opinion of the film is pretty much the exact same as it was when I left the theater. Like, I feel the exact same way. So
can you imagine if a new Star Wars, like well, I know they kind of already have a director, but if they announced or even Boba Fett, like a fan favorite, the Boba Fett movie is going to be helmed by Chappie director Neil Blomkamp, the fan reaction would be like, what?
I would be fine with it.
So would I.
As a matter of fact, Neil Blomkamp,
he would make a dope Boba Fett movie.
Should have directed Rogue One. And yes, you're absolutely right, because Boba Fett, sort of like
in the desert, yeah.
Well, not necessarily. Well, maybe, but the Boba Fett movie would, of course, be like the underground of the Star Wars universe. And I even made this point. It's like, because he films it in South Africa and because he has a completely different perspective, this feels like Mad Max, even though it's present day. And I think all of his movies have that element. Well, I guess Elysium's a little bit in the future, but as far as I know, District 9 is present day and Chappie's present day, just with a science fiction flavor. So Christian was one of those people who was like, Blomkamp shouldn't direct Star Wars. Really? I know that goes against everything I said earlier about having a white guy, but also it's a completely different flavor.
But also, when they announced the Star Wars movies coming back, he was the first. That was the first name out of his mouth.
Oh, really?
Remember that? Yeah. Remember I told you that?
Well, it's because of Chappie. Chappie is the reason why the tables turned. And it's like, so that's why that was me making a case for
I don't
Chappie.
think Elysium had been out at that point either, though, when I heard that.
I don't know.
Like 2013, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. But
anyways, where can I find you online?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram. The Chappie thing is up. and yeah, that's all I got.
You can find me at Jaye Williams, J the A, the Y, the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. I just announced More Than Music. It's finally coming out February 27th, Tuesday, February 27th. By now, as you're listening to this, I will have hopefully uploaded a video sort of explaining it and describing what it is and all this other stuff. You can also listen to a little behind the scenes thing that I did on my music episode where I talked about putting it together. That Janev, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Janev asked me to do that, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. So, yeah, get excited. 4 episodes, 1 episode per month for the next 4 months. Ryan Snelling's going to appear on one of them with me. Still need to work that out, but look for it. The first, I guess, not really first new show of Sight and Sound, because we had things like, I guess After Party would have been a first new show, and then Never Before Seen, but we need to do more.
And random like music commentary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is like the first like proper show. You will be seeing more of these in the future. Anyways, yeah, that's where you can find me. Go buy our shirts, sightsoundpod.com. You got anything else?
No.
All right, goodbye.